Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Innovation Tech Talks. I'm your host, Corey Noles. Today's podcast is brought to you by Omron Healthcare, a leader in healthcare technology. We're going to be speaking today about live streaming of events and all kinds of other things. We'll talk about what that involves, the tech, and maybe the future of live streams. Our guest today is Bill Wishon, Chief Product Officer of Phenix, a real-time streaming tech provider. Bill, we're honored to have you today. How are you, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good. I guess to get us rolling, can you give us a little background about Phenix and what you guys do over there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Phenix, we're a company that's focused on interactive broadcasting, interactive experiences relating to video, audio, and data. So here at Phenix, we've built a platform that allows for us to create experiences where the video signal is being transmitted in real time. So just like we have real-time communications for things like Zoom meetings and WebEx type meetings, we can now do that with professional content, such as sports content or game show content, other kinds of content, and create interactivity around it. One of the things that most people, I don't think, appreciate or realize is that most OTT live video that you consume is delayed by about 30 to 40 seconds from what's happening behind the camera. So it takes about 30 or 40 seconds for most traditional online systems to get that video from light coming into the camera at one end to light coming out your screen at the other. Whereas with Phenix, we can do that whole end-to-end process in less than half a second. And that allows you to have interactivity between the audience and somebody behind the camera potentially. It's also true that here at Phenix we've developed a synchronization technology called SyncWatch that allows for us to synchronize the entire audience so that you can have interactivity amongst audience members. Because the other thing that I don't think is widely appreciated is that with traditional OTT video technology, there's a large drift amongst the audience. So even if we're all watching, let's say NBC's version of an Olympic event or something, even though we're all watching the same provider's video feed, we could be off in time by 30, 40 seconds. And so we're trying to have a text conversation or, have a side chat, and I say, hey, that's a great play. Or do you see that, that move? And of course you haven't seen it yet and you won't see it for another 30 seconds or something like that. So by doing this, by making the latency real time and by providing the synchronization, we're able to enable interactivity. And that's really the key that drives the majority of our sort of business and use cases around interactivity, whether that's gamification and you're doing some sort of interactive game with the other people that are watching and the people behind the camera, or you're doing some sort of multi-angle viewing where you're viewing an event from multiple angles. You need to keep in sync with each other. Those are the sorts of things that kind of come our way in terms of use cases.
Well, that's really interesting. I've noticed before watching, for example, and I'm sure this is the worst quality of streaming on earth, but on YouTube, when you're watching something stream like that, you might see someone in the comments make a comment. They start freaking out about some play, and you're like, nothing's happening. They're still just standing there. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of that gap you're talking about?
That is exactly right.
Maybe that's somebody in Delaware's already seeing this, and you're not yet, for example.
Yep. That's exactly right. And also in a live stream environment that's not in real time, you'll get questions in the comments that relate to something the speaker might have said, 10, 30 seconds ago, depending on the latency of the stream. They're commenting on something they heard a little while in the past. And so the comments aren't as relevant to the presenter even, because if the presenter is monitoring the chat comments, they're monitoring comments about something they said just a little while ago.
Which makes it tough. Yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. I never thought about that being a concern. Bill, I guess also something I'm curious about. What's your background prior to Phenix? What brought you to this?
Well, my background has been focused on innovation in the media and entertainment space primarily throughout my career. I founded a startup up in Seattle late in the 90s around image manipulation and delivery to cell phones. And then I worked for a small startup called LightSurf Technology that the founder of which, Philippe Kahn, invented the camera phone, and we launched the camera phone in the United States with picture messaging,
Wow.
and then I ended up working for a company called Contiki, which brought peer-to-peer technology to the BBC and Channel 4 and B-Sky B. This was before streaming was a thing, if you can remember back that far, when you had to download your video before you could watch it.
Yeah,
So
I'm thinking back to Napster and whatnot.
yeah,
Is
exactly.
it
So it
that
was
era?
yeah, it's exactly that era, but it was applied to sort of professional video, the BBC's iPlayer, being able to download those videos before you watch them, and using the peer-to-peer technology to enable that. And then right about that time, streaming kind of took off, and Move Networks and Akamai and Adobe Flash and everything started taking off and allowing for the click-to-play experiences that we all are familiar with now. I ended up working for Akamai for quite a few years, about a decade or so, and in their CTO office, really kind of looking ahead of the product roadmap, trying to build out some proof of concept and some sort of early demonstrations of what could be done, looking ahead of the roadmap and what's coming in the media entertainment space, and that's where I had a realization that OTT video had surpassed traditional video in terms of quality. So you can go online now today and you can find more 4K HDR content online than you can through traditional terrestrial over-the-air broadcast and satellite broadcast. And then you also had the situation where OTT video can support live broadcast events at the same scale as traditional broadcast, right? So 10 million plus viewer audiences are now possible. Akamai's demonstrated that. Others have demonstrated high scale events. But the one thing that got kind of left behind was latency. And I looked at that as an opportunity and said, well, is it valuable to reduce the latency? Because we're looking at latencies of 30 seconds or more. Is there value in reducing it? And if so, where does that go? How low does it go? What's the technical reality of how do you do that? And in my sort of technologist mind, yes, there's value there. And yes, it's possible. But nobody was really focused on that space that I could see. And I then met up with the founder of Phenix, Stefan Beer, and he had been looking at this space and building a scalable platform for the delivery of real-time video to enable interactivity. And that's when I switched and joined up with Phenix about 4 years ago or so, because here at Phenix, we're actually solving this problem in the real world, not just thinking about it and not just wondering about it. But we've had events with 500,000 concurrent viewers in real time, watching content, and proving out that our platform can do what it says it can do and scale and provide the quality of video, the latency, and give everybody the real time interactive experience that I think drives another level of engagement. Ultimately, why do we do all this? It's because viewers are going to get some extra value out of that experience versus a high latency experience, whether that's because they're able to interact with each other and send each other messages, whether it's because they're placing wagers in a peer-to-peer wagering market or a bookmaker wagering market, or whether they're it's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which we did a companion app to the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game show, and you're able to interact with the content in a different way because you're able to have that real-time experience. I mean, these are the kinds of things that I think keep people engaged in the services that they're consuming. And so if you're engaged more, you're more likely to renew your subscription. You're more likely to watch more advertising or whatever it is that's the monetization mechanism. You're going to stay longer for those experiences that are engaging you. And that's really the crux of the situation is, how do we make more interactive, more interesting, more engaging experiences? And real time is a part of that.
And I'm not asking for your specific secrets, but kind of what went into trying to solve that latency issue? I mean, is that a software solution? Is this a hardware solution? Is this a little of all of it?
Yeah, this is a software based solution. It's based on a technology that's widely out there and adopted. It's called WebRTC.
Okay.
It may even be the technology we're using here to have this conversation and to record this podcast. It's built into every browser, mobile and desktop. It's pretty ubiquitous at this stage. COVID has particularly proved that it's scalable in terms of the number of different people that can be having conversations on the internet simultaneously. But what hadn't really been focused on is the sort of single audience scalability issue, right? I mean, you've got small groups of people chatting. It's a different kind of problem than a million people wanting to watch the same stream. And so I kind of say it's sort of it's the same thing as the traditional OTT problem, but completely different. Meaning, it's the same problem of scale. You still have to support a million concurrents or more. But when I say it's completely different, it's because it's happening all in sub 500 milliseconds. And so
Yeah.
everything you do in that chain, from signal acquisition to encoding to global transit to egress to client side buffering, that whole chain of events needs to happen in the blink of an eye, versus as far as computers concerned, 30 seconds is infinity, right? Computers
Yeah.
are operating at a high frequency. And so one of the major challenges is just to design a system where each piece has been designed to take into account the fact that it is has to do its duty in a very small window of time, and keep everything flowing smoothly through the system. And so we built a global platform. It's right now a little over 30 different points of presence around the globe. We run and operate this 24/7 and provide services to our customers based on this platform.
Nice. I was looking at your website. You guys have a pretty impressive client list too. I remember seeing Verizon, Disney, some other big names that you've worked with in the
Mm-hmm.
past, and or currently, I'm not sure, but I
Yeah.
what you're doing seems to be working well. And one of the things I'm curious about is when you're doing a big event like this. Like I saw you guys have done some like your call football and things along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
What goes into planning a massive stream like that?
Mm. That's a good question. A lot goes into it. I won't go into the the parts that kind of happened before us, which is the planning of the event itself, and
Yeah.
all of the things that happen on the physical field or whatnot. But where it really starts to touch Phenix is uh, first is signal acquisition. How do you get that signal from wherever it's being captured, from that camera on the field or on the racetrack, wherever that camera is? How do you get that signal from where it is to Phenix to begin with? So that
Yeah.
really kind of starts off the thinking. And we have an encoder technology we can place on-prem next to the camera, picking it up over an SDI, traditional sort of signal acquisition technique.
Yeah.
It can be IP transport potentially from a stadium or a racetrack to some sort of central meet point, using a low latency transport like a media transport network to get that signal from the stadium to some sort of central data center where we pick it up there. Depending on the event, we can also pick it up over the internet directly from the event venue if they have enough bandwidth. They often don't have a great set of connectivity depending on where it is, but sometimes they do, and you can uplink a signal from the event stadium or location directly into the Phenix cloud using RTMP, SRT, those sort of over the internet contribution protocols. So that's a
Yeah.
big part of it, because uh, you know if you have anything that goes wrong with that first mile, that first hop, that first link up into the system, the entire audience is affected. So you really have to make sure that you're planning that piece well, and you have redundancy, and we call it high availability. Where you want to make sure you have maybe two different internet links. So if one goes down, and you have two encoding paths and so forth, so that you're guarding against any kind of single point of failure. So that's really a very important point, is how you get that signal. And then there's two other pieces that go into any event, and the next one is event management. How do you hook up with the customer's event management system? When is the next event? Turning up all of the required software prior to that event, and the pre-flight checks, and then once the event is over, capturing the recording or whatever you're going to do sort of post-event. And then there's the third piece, which is client-side integration, and that's integrating the video with the experience in the mobile app or in the web app. And so there's a discussion around client-side technologies, whether it's iOS, Android, web, variety of ways to integrate this technology and create the video and interactive experience on the client side. So those are the three main parts: is acquisition, management, and delivery that we have to go through for any event.
Wow. Well, let's take a quick break here for a message from our sponsors at Omron Healthcare.
Today's episode of Innovation Tech Talks is brought to you by Omron. Omron is a world leader in technology designed to solve social issues, improve lives, and build a better tomorrow. They serve a range of industries which utilize their technologies to innovate and grow factory automation, healthcare, mobility, and energy management. In the industrial automation business, Omron technology demonstrates the power of machines to unleash human potential, pursuing the ideal in automation, in which people and machines are working together in harmony. Omron provides sensing, control, safety, vision, motion, and robotics technologies for the automotive, food and beverage packaging, semiconductor, electronics, life sciences, and infrastructure industries. For over 80 years, Omron has helped industrial businesses maximize potential by solving problems with creativity. Learn more, go to automation.omron.com.
Now, something I'm wondering is what kind of internet access does it take when you're talking about being able to stream out live 4K video without a delay? I mean, it seems like we'd be talking about some serious bandwidth.
Well, the bandwidth requirements in terms of the throughput levels are relatively similar to the traditional delivery technologies. It's not so much about requiring more bandwidth. When you're talking about doing things in real time, the things that become more important are things like the latency and jitter. Latency is how long it takes the packets of data to go from, let's say, the data center to the client. And with as many points of presence as we have, we're close to basically everybody on the planet can get to a Phenix data center within, say, 20 milliseconds or so. So we're close to everyone from a latency perspective. The next thing is the jitter, which is you're sending out packets on a regular basis like a metronome, tick tock. But sometimes in the delivery of the network, those packets get spaced out differently. A few will get delayed a little bit more than others, and so you end up with on the receiver side, it's not the metronome. There's a pause between ticks sometimes, and as those pauses happen, that's more important to real time than it is to the higher latency video streams, because in the higher latency video streams you've got a large buffer to deal with, and so you can just wait for those gaps to be closed, and nobody notices anything. With real time, we have to react to those events in real time, and we have an adaptive bitrate video technology that allows us to switch bit rates in the event that the packets aren't keeping up, or if there's a significant delay. And so in real time, we can switch from a 1080 stream to a 720 back to 1080 and make sure that people keep up with the live video and maintain their signal while they're watching.
Wow. What's when you're streaming an event like that, what's your biggest hurdle? What is the one thing that just has to go right, or the one thing that's your biggest concern every time you show up?
I don't know if there's one single thing. I mean, I went through the three things that we normally go through very methodically, to vet, the ingest signal. And I mean, out of those three things, I mean, I think the ingest side and the client integration pieces are key. Another aspect is what happens outside the Phenix part. So meaning, let's just say you have a payment gateway as part of the experience where you have to pay for this event. It's outside of our control, but we do talk with our partners and customers about it, because it has bitten other events badly when everything is set up to scale and everything is set up great, except you get something like a payment gateway that starts to get inundated with requests and slow down. It starts to impact the user experience. So these are things that aren't directly related to the video streaming experience, that can impact the user experience, that even though they're to some degree outside of the scope of what Phenix does, we're, a lot of us are longtime industry veterans, and we are watching out for our customers in these ways too, just, sort of asking these questions, ensuring that these other pieces are also vetted in terms of their request rate capacities and their scale and so forth. So, I mean, it's not like my biggest concern, but it's just, I haven't mentioned it before. It is something that we do take into account. in addition to our own integration with our customer, is just making sure that we're looking at the whole picture, I guess is my point, and not just the video piece.
Okay. Something I was curious about is, are you seeing a lot more interest in finding ways to gamify these streams, that companies you're working with are looking for ways to keep it more interactive beyond just the traditional chat window?
Absolutely. I mean, that is what is driving a lot of the interest right now. So particularly sports and sports gambling. And even if you're not into gambling, the gambling without the money is gamification, more or less. Right. So even if you're not wagering actual money on something, you can be playing a game alongside of the sport event, predicting what's going to happen, and to control various aspects of the experience. Like, Your Call Football was a very interesting experiment where the audience was actually calling the plays of what was going to happen on the field. And it was because it was happening in real time that you could get a vote and a tally in enough time for the coach on the side of the field to call the play based on the audience's decision. That's an interesting example. And, I think there are, flavors of experiences that can involve, the gambling-like sort of choosing predicting what's going to happen type of model, along with, interactions with perhaps celebrities that were former stars in the game, and creating options for users to use those points they gain in one area to perhaps have a one-on-one conversation, with the celebrity that the whole audience is watching. That's another point, about our platform that is a differentiator from the traditional systems, is that we can take a video feed input from anybody at any time. And so as you're watching, whether it's from your desktop or your mobile device, your tablet, you can just click and publish your own video stream into the experience. And so you could have a soccer game where you could choose which commentator. Do you want to have the commentator be from the home team or the away team? And you can then listen to that person commenting on the game. And then through some sort of gamification or some sort of system, you can raise your hand, say, I want to ask that person a question, turn on your video, and now you're interacting with that person, and that person, have that interaction, and the whole audience gets to see that. And then when that interaction is done, that person goes back to being an audience member. And, and so we can just pull people in and push people out from the audience to a participant and back to an audience member, dynamically.
That's wild. That's wild. How do you, and you're talking about these things that are new ways that people are interested in streaming. How do you find what people are wanting and find a way to implement those into what your existing technology is?
Yeah, that's a very interesting part of the job for me, because I feel like the analogy I like to use here is like a new artistic medium. So before there was film, people were asking the same question you just asked: what would we do with this medium, right? And before there was film with sound, people were using sort of pianos in the theater and things like that. But then you had sound in the picture, and it was a new medium for the artist to work with. And in a lot of ways, the real-time platform that's capable of doing audio, video, and data in real time is a new artistic medium. It's a new paintbrush, a new way that you can be creative. And so I really enjoy personally the interactions I have with customers as they get to understand the toolkit that they can use and how it applies to them and their experience, right? So each of our customers, they have their own business, right? They have their own objectives and their own world. And here we are bringing a new technology that opens up a new way of creating experience. And so you interact with the creative folks, and you kind of educate them on what it is that's possible. And they start to have ideas about how they would use these tools to create their own unique experiences for their own viewers. And that's a fun part of it, because with any new technology, you can create new experiences you get creative people, having interesting ideas. And I go, wow, I hadn't thought about it that way. I think let me just check. Yeah, I think we can do that with our platform. Let me go get an architecture together and put together some thoughts on how we might accomplish that. I mean, it's a very fun part of the job.
Nice, nice. That brings out the creative side, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Um, I look back and I think about the just massive impact that even just regular television had on society from its
Mm-hmm.
inception and how it's grown. Do you feel like streaming is changing things at that level as well and will continue to as we move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the the fact that you can have uh, these video experiences in a platform where you can also bring in, data and information and interaction in a way that wasn't really available in television. I mean, television was a one-way broadcast medium, and now you're bringing that same level of video quality and uh, production capability into a world that's completely interactive. And so this is true about the internet. It's true about if we want to get into it, talking about the metaverse, and
Yeah.
and for me, the metaverse is just more and more immersion into an experience, right? So it's
Yeah.
um, you're taking flat video and making it something you can pan around in, or something that you can wear a headset for. You're taking audio that was mono to stereo to 5.1 to spatial audio now. I mean, the spatial audio technology is pretty amazing.
It
Where
is.
you previously had let's say a VR experience without spatial audio, and it lacks something. You add spatial audio, and now you can hear something off visual screen, right? Something that you can't see, you can hear and turn your head to go look at, because you auditorially hear the space, where it is in the world, right? Because that's something we do every day in our real world. Is where someone's talking to you from. You hear something
Yeah.
behind you, you turn around, right? And that was lacking in the sort of reproduction of experiences online and with media, and it's now starting to be possible to reproduce those
Yeah.
sorts of experiences with that high fidelity, and that's going to be another sort of artistic medium, if you will. What do you do with
Absolutely.
spatial audio and that sort of thing?
Well, and I mean, with VR, prior to this, you're talking about going from what is essentially having 3D vision with 1 to 2D audio
Hmm.
that isn't chasing, where now that's things like Dolby Atmos, for example, is
Hmm.
really is changing that as we speak to where it makes that VR experience so much better.
Well, and even non-VR, this is my perspective. I think metaverse isn't just putting on VR goggles, because I don't
Yes.
think that that's a mass market thing for quite a while yet. I still haven't
Yeah.
seen the killer use case that makes everybody want to go put on a headset.
Yeah.
But I can easily see how spatial audio can enhance many existing experiences with your devices. So, for example, even just the idea, the AR experiences people are having, with, sort of holding up their phones and looking at virtual experiences like the Pokemon Go experiences and things like that. If you had your AirPods in with the spatial audio capabilities, and you're out there trying to capture the Pokemon or whatever, you can now hear things that are happening off visual field, and now you have an extra clue as to how to navigate the experience. With all these virtual meetings, you can imagine being around a virtual table where you have people that you're talking to, and someone speaks off camera, and you can turn and see that person that was speaking. And so I think even just adding in this layer of audio to 2D video experiences is a step along the way.
Yeah.
It is part of this metaverse conversation that, at least in my mind, I include things like that, where it's just more immersion incrementally along the way.
It is. And something I joke about, we had a discussion about VR and AR at work the other day. And we were talking about how, VR was trying to be a thing in the mid 90s. I mean, I remember Virtuality, the company. You could go to maybe a mall and they had a VR headset, and you got in this stand and you played Mech Warrior with basically a real game that was a big game at the time. And it's just taken so long to progress that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, augmented reality comes out, and it's almost more fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I find that integration of the digital world on top of your world as it exists is it's an interesting dynamic. It's kind of like listening to a vinyl record on a brand new high digital stereo or something. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
there's
Mm-hmm.
a kind of an interchange that's happening there that I've always thought was neat.
Yeah, there's another area that I'm fascinated by in this new sort of world inching towards the metaverse, so to speak, and that is volumetric video, where by combining multiple angles of cameras on the same focal point. So you have 10 cameras focused on a football field. You can recreate the 3D environment from analyzing those different camera feeds. And that would allow you to put a camera anywhere on the field you want. So if you wanted to watch the game from the 50-yard line and be looking down the field at the players running at you, you could. If you want to put your camera on top of the goalpost, you could. You want to put your camera in the end zone, you could. So this allows you this virtual camera capability where you can navigate this 3D space, but built from 2D camera input using computer algorithms to regenerate the 3D models and to do that. And I think that technology is not quite real time yet, but it's getting closer, and it will be, I think, at some point. And that
Kind of
just
like a
opens up
higher tech Google Street Views sort of thing, where you're
Yeah.
watching all of these different images and angles come together. But I guess with live video, that's a neat idea.
Well, take Google Street View, and now it's 3D, not just a series of 2D camera shots, but
Yeah.
now you can stroll in, say Google Street View around objects and look at them from all sides.
Yeah. That's a big difference.
Yeah. And
That's
so I think that is going to be something perhaps more interesting in a mass market appeal perspective than VR will be, because I still struggle to imagine the world where 10 million people are putting on headsets to experience something at the same time. But I can easily imagine 10 million people controlling with their finger on a touchscreen the camera that they're using to view a sport event, right?
Oh,
I can
yeah.
easily imagine someone with a tablet sitting in front of a big screen, moving the camera around so they can have a experience watching the player they want to watch, or watching the piece of the action they want to watch. I can easily imagine that.
Or to go back and watch a questionable play.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you have the ability to back up, I mean, you could go back and see, all right, is his foot really on the bag?
Yeah.
Does he
right.
his ball really in his hand? Does he have full control of the ball?
I mean, that is mass market, right? So I see that as an opportunity where perhaps once it gets to that level of real time, and ubiquity, has more impact on the world perhaps than VR.
Nice. So where do you see Phenix headed in the next 5-10 years? Is it kind of that direction?
Yeah, I think there's a few different vectors of progress. I mean, there's obviously the video, audio immersion and quality enhancement track where you're going from 2D videos to 360 videos, 4K, 8K, 5.1 to spatial audio. There's that whole world, but then there's also the things that lead up to the metaverse. There's like every iPhone, at least new ones out there, they have not only multiple cameras on them, but also LiDAR. And so you've got this ability to capture much more data in real time and to create 3D models in real time. And so I see the data portion of our platform as a critical component of the future of Phenix, where instead of just transmitting video, audio, and like chat messages, it's AI's client side analyzing sensor data, creating 3D models in real time, and transmitting deltas in 3D models that are then texture mapped on the other side, right? So you end up with an avatar-like experience on the other side that is sort of puppeted by the sensor data on the client that's producing the content, and then transmitted in real time in data as opposed to necessarily in video. And so I think the data platform, sort of rises in prominence as these interactive experiences get more rich and complex, along with the audio and video, obviously. But I think it's underappreciated, the level of impact these data, transit systems are going to have.
Wow. Well, Bill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
Where can people go to learn more about Phenix and keep up with the cool things you guys are doing?
Well, there's our homepage, which is phenixrts.com, and that's Phenix, Phenix.
Okay.
And we're obviously on LinkedIn and Twitter also, so you can follow us in any of those places.
Nice. Well, everyone, thanks so much for watching. It's been a fun
Thank
chat
you.
today, learning more
It's
and
been
more
fun.
about the streaming world, where it's going, and what goes into these kind of large-scale projects we see. Please like, subscribe. Make sure you check out our podcast wherever you go to get podcasts. It's live on YouTube and all of the other streaming platforms. And we'll be back here next time. Thanks for watching.